So congratulations of a great comeback to cinema with The Power of the Dog. It's amazing, really.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So how is Los Angeles treating you?
Well, yeah, I feel like a movie star. I've got a house with some gorgeous palm trees, and yeah, I've got friends here.
Nice.
I don't think Netflix bought them all, but no, I'm having a good time. Thank you.
We are going to talk about a Lifetime Achievement Award. So
Oh my God, right.
Back to the very beginning again. So take us back to New Zealand when you were a young girl, and where did your love for cinema come from? And when did you realize that you could really make movies yourself?
All right. You know what? I didn't come into cinema as a movie buff. I think that's a real, as far as I can work out, boy route into cinema, because in a way, there wasn't many women making films when I began, and I just didn't think it was something that women did. However, I think that the thing that made me feel like I had a real edge, a real possibility, was that when we were traveling as a family when I was about 16, Dad bought a Super 8 camera, and he and I took a big interest in it. And when he wasn't filming us, I was filming. Especially he wanted me to do things like, film me rowing in Holland, on one of the, get my muscles, and stuff like that. It was just so fun and innocent, and I felt like, I know how to film. And when the films came back home and we wanted to see them on the projector, we had a few mishaps, like everything was upside down, and he was going like, oh my God, whatever. And then I figured out how to do it, how to get them to play the right way up. And then I was like the technical genius, And I know how small that sounds, but when I was at art school and decided to make some Super 8 movies, I felt I had an edge. This tiny capacity to make sure the films played the right way up made me feel a little bit confident. And so I learned how to make Super 8 from a textbook. I just kept a chapter ahead of what I was actually doing. And I fell in love with the process of, kind of actually making the films myself and understanding what was happening and learning about it. And, my friends were in them, and they were kind of crazy ideas. And I had no idea about technical proficiency or, anything other than, is it in front of the camera? Have we got like exposure? Then we'd all cheer, like, this is amazing. I think my first experiences of filmmaking was so joyous because I had so little requirement. And then when I learned that there was all sorts of other things that you had to do, like work out lenses and things like that, I've never been happy again. I'm always thinking like, oh my God, is there a better way to shoot this? That's my constant question. Is there a better way to shoot this? Is there a more interlinked way to shoot it? Like, I haunt myself over coverage, and I thought I was the only person, but actually it seems that's every director's nightmare or question, like, am I doing the best job with the coverage? So that's a pretty long answer, right? But yeah.
So when you made your first feature-length film, Sweetie, it's a film that has such an, when I revisited it, such a great, vibrant, 80s vibe to it. Was it a happy period to start out? And what other directors of that time did you connect to?
There were some amazing directors at that time that I felt connected to their work. I didn't know any of them, but of course, I remember vividly seeing David Lynch's Eraserhead and just going, oh my God. It's like he lifted the top off my head, and allowed you to have a sort of dream, nightmare, psyche imagination that was already in me, but he really opened up that possibility for me. and I love him so much. I love all his work so much, and I'm really a devotee. And then there was Jim Jarmusch. And I loved how casual and beautiful his films were. Remember the Lost Down by Law, for example. It's such a beautiful film, and such a different attitude to filmmaking. Like, it was more casual, coming in from the side, not the Hollywood style of storytelling. And I did feel liberated by them. Even Spike Lee did the right thing. I mean, he was the same year as I was with Sweetie, but I did feel a kinship to these filmmakers and also influenced by them. Sweetie itself was a sort of story of written by myself and my ex-boyfriend at the time, Gerard Lee, who I've done a lot of writing with since. And we just sort of wrote about, in disguise, ourselves and our family. And I mean, it's also fictionalized. But Gerard did have a schizophrenic brother who was deaf and really chaotic in the family, that caused so many dramas and problems. And so he was a little bit, and he was also like a wonderful character, but he was also, you know, a lot of the inspiration for Sweetie, who we changed to a girl and played by Genevieve Lemon so amazingly.
So, and then we go to An Angel at My Table, which is a film that could really be perceived as a tribute to the power of literature. And as you are a passionate reader, how can you tell when you read a book that this could be an amazing film?
Well, in that case, when the book arrived, I'd been waiting for it to be sent to me by my mother, because I was a Janet Frame fan, and I heard she was writing her biography, and I really wanted to know what the true story of her life was, because it was, you know, there were so many rumors about who she really was, and so I was so excited. And the test was like, I received it, and the next morning I started reading it in bed, and I never got up till I finished it, and I was just crying, you know, with the vulnerability that she brought forward and the way she told the story. I was just sobbing because I loved her so much. This little redhead creature who had such a poetic soul, even though she, you know, apparently didn't fit that model of looking poetic as she would have imagined poetic people look. And it was just so adorable and touching and tragic too, because of the loss of her two sisters. So yeah, I guess just my own reaction was so powerful. And my thought was, I love this so much. I want more people to understand this work of Janet's, you know. And I want to try and do it. Like, I was a film student at the time, and I hadn't really made anything. But anyway, I went to visit Janet. Found out where she lived, which actually wasn't very far from where our farm was, and brought us some eggs, which I managed to sort of break on the way in the car. And then Janet and I had this really confused conversation. Like, she thought that I'd had a car accident, but it was just the eggs, and it took a long time to figure out. And then I was just sitting with her in her quaint, like really suburban house with long grass all around it and double bricked, so that she could perhaps not hear everybody else's lawnmowers. And her house was so amazing. Like, she'd turned it into like hospital wards and divided up the rooms with curtains, because she spent so much time in hospital, I guess. And she said, oh, this is this project I'm working on in this ward, you know, more or less. This is this one. And then we went into her living room, and even that was a bed. We just sat on each side of the bed like we were visiting a patient. But to me, she just seemed a free person, you know, like, compared to how everybody else was so concerned with, you know, living a respectable life. Janet seemed to be living her own life, and she was alive and free and funny and original. And she'd work with these big headset things on to stop sound coming in. And she said to me, oh, you know what? I would be really open to you making this film, but I haven't finished writing the biography. Why don't you wait till the 2 other books come out? And if you still feel the same way, let's talk again. And so I said, okay. And then as soon as 2 books had come out, I contacted her again and she said, yes, okay.
Have you felt that sort of connection? Obviously you have with literature. After.
I think, yes. I mean, it's all about like the inspiration being so strong that you can carry you through the stresses that you're going to have to encounter to get it done. And for me, when the inspiration's quite weak, you have a lot more fear. And I always think that it's to do with like getting the right proportion of inspiration to fear. And you've just got to have 2% more inspiration than fear. And if you can get that, then you can go. But fear is a killer to the creative process. And I've seen so many people who are so talented get lost in that area of doubt and uncertainty, which fear breeds. So it's really important to love the source material or whatever the inspiration is very much, so that you feel this love for what you're doing, or for the source material, like for the Janet project, or something in it that is exciting to you. And then usually for me that carries me through, and then when you finish it you suddenly feel flooded with fear, like, oh my God, what's everyone going to think,
But after making An Angel at My Table, you made the piano quite quickly, and it was really a huge success, and it came with a lot of prizes, obviously, but also with a sort of loneliness for all these years where you have been the only female Palme d'Or director and so forth. But this year so much has changed, and I guess you feel less lonely now.
That's right. Julia Durkanow, with her amazing film Titan. I really was really excited to meet her actually in Lyon. We had a little dinner together with my friend Tanya, and I asked to see her film and got screened in a really nice projection situation all by myself. I was giggling through it with happiness because the film is so exciting. It's really energized, and Julia is connecting to something that's really original and really powerful, and it's like a Mary Shelley. She's like a Mary Shelley. She's like reinvented the new Frankenstein. It's a beautiful love story myth, and Holly Hunter actually came over to see me just the other day, and she had just been to see the movie, which was really cute. And she said, "Oh my God, what do you think of it?" She said, "I'm kind of shaken up about it. It's so sort of visceral and thrilling." And I said, "I know, it's really good. It's really interesting." And it's interesting to see the courage that Julia has to do work like that. That's completely different than anyone else is doing.
So let's
But
go.
yes, I mean, I think like just talking about the piano again, like I actually had the idea for that before Angel at My Table, but I felt like it was too complicated and bigger project for me to tackle at that point. I just wanted to grow up a little bit more and do a bit more filming to get my feet more firmly underneath myself, with the whole process of filmmaking, because Sweetie was actually really hard to make. We had a very crazy crew, and I was very, very stressed during the making of it. During Angel at My Table, I learned how to enjoy shooting and how to just trust that we'd be able to figure things out on the day. And I got to really have fun. And the same with the piano. I really enjoyed that shoot. And, you know, for me, there was a big step up working with people like Holly Hunter and Sam Neill and Harvey Keitel, like that level of actor I had never worked with before, and was a little intimidated by how, you know, we would communicate. Like someone like Harvey's just done so much work, and I didn't really know if he'd want to listen to me, you know. So that was a big step up too, working with actors that weren't just friends or people that hardly done anything. And I think it really opened up my eyes to what an actor can do, you know, and contribute. Harvey taught me how to rehearse in a way. Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot from the actors, a great deal.
Talking about the two films you did afterwards, A Portrait of a Lady and Bright Star, well, both are I think, one of the most beautiful costume dramas ever made. So period cinema seems so hard, but it also seems that you have always been so at ease with that kind of cinema. Is that true?
I think a lot of my inspiration comes from 19th century novels. I think particularly the Bronte sisters, because they are women. I love them so much and read everything about them, their lives, their books. I've been to the moors and walked them, and, you know, found a little waterfall where they used to sit. And I used to feel sorry for them a little bit, you know, living in the cold, miserable moors or whatever. But when you go there, it's enchanted. And I stopped feeling sorry for them and thought, like, my God, they have this fairy tale life as sisters. And I mean, maybe not much experience in conventional living, you know, like, how did Emily Bronte create Heathcliff, you know? I mean, I'm pretty sure she never even kissed somebody. Yet she created the most romantic sort of blackguard type lover. Man that you could ever have. I mean, it's just a testament to the imagination that these women had. And, you know, for me, they were a very, very powerful soul sisters. And they were more powerful for me as inspiration, I think, than a lot of films. So, and also Henry James, I mean, he's a beautiful writer, and Portrait of a Lady is great. Portrait of a Woman, a really scary, spooky one. And I think he, as a gay man, I think he had a particular capacity to understand women in a way that other writers maybe don't have. Or in any case, I really love his portrait of Isabel Archer in Portrait of a Lady. And thank you. I love that film, and it's a film that I can go back and see quite often. Don't get sick of it. And Bright Star, such a, you know, tragic, amazing story. Another one that, you know, made me sob for hours after reading, you know, the story of Keats and Fanny Braun. And it's like Romeo and Juliet, really, but real, you know. Really tragic.
That's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So beautiful, yeah. And I mean, like, that boy died at 25, 26, but he'd written so much, you know, like, it was a life fully expressed even at that age. It's such an amazing thing to realize. And it actually made me really trust young people, you know, like, generally speaking, nobody trusts somebody to do anything good until they're in their 30s. But when I realized that Keats died at, you know, 26 and finished writing at 25, I just thought, like, I'm going to use a really young composer for this project. And I used a friend of my niece, who I just thought was kind of clever, Mark Bradshaw. And yeah, then he fell in love with Ben Whishaw and they got married. Yeah.
Yes. Speaking about that, you to revisit your films. Which one is the closest one to your heart?
Of all my films, I think Bright Star is pretty close, you know, and I think this one right now, The Power of the Dog, I really like it. I like it as a piece of work, you know. I think it's got a beautiful shape and mystery to it. And also like Girl's Own Story, which was my graduation film, because it meant so much to me to have been able to sort of tell that story about a young girl growing up. But, you know, in a way, I know people say it, but I give everything I have to each of them as I go, and some of them land in the world better than others. And, you know, once they've landed in the world, I sort of step back and leave them to it, you know. But while I'm making them, I give them all the love and attention and any sort of intelligence I can offer it to do the best job with it. But as I say, they do land really differently.
Speaking about the process, is there a part of the filmmaking process that you like the most?
No, it changes with the film. Like this last film, The Power of the Dog, I found the pre-production actually really difficult because there was so much stress about parts of the project I really didn't have much control on, like weather. Like if the weather was like this, then we might have a river that we couldn't use. You know, like if it was too much rain, the river would be a torrent and you couldn't swim in it. And if we got too much sun, the river would dry up. I mean, there's just so many variables, and like we didn't have much wriggle room for making adjustments if the weather wasn't a friend to us. Like, you know, when we did the scene on the hilltop with George and Rose, we didn't have any cover for that. Like, you know, and I just remember feeling really anxious all the time about what's the weather going to be like, because it had to be good. And then finally we got this like perfect day, and the weather was actually, it ended up being super kind to us. But as a director, I'm like caring and worrying about every scene and how the weather's going to affect them, because we just didn't have coverage for all our exteriors. And not only that, we had to build this really huge ranch house, and we chose a place to build because of its landscape in the Ida Valley in the central part of the south of New Zealand, and it's got the highest wind of anywhere in the whole of the country. So we had to build it like super strong. But it was also like very, very hard to build because, you know, they would be trying to carry, you know, a big piece of ply and literally just fly off, you know. And I would visit that place sometimes, and it was so bitter and so cold and so windy, I didn't even get out of the van, you know, and they actually have to push me out. And I was just thinking, I didn't see how this is going to happen. I just don't see how they're going to get finished. And I remember talking to the head carpenter and saying, we're going to get here? Are we going to make this? And he'd say, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to get done. And so I just sort of report back to production saying, are you sure, guys, that we're on, you know, schedule for this? I think we need more people, or we're not going to be. I mean, so it was like carrying all the weight of those stresses was difficult, and made me a bit sick, really. I felt like I couldn't sleep very well and things like that. So it was stressful. And then when the shoot begins, it's like you can unload some of your burden. But on this film, the part that I really enjoyed was the edit. And I think it was such a relief from all the worries and the concerns and the pandemic and, you know, just everything that landed on us. And in the edit, I was just there with 2 people in a sort of scummy room, feeling like, oh, now we can be just gently, quietly creative about how to put this together the best way. And and just think about yummy lunches we were going to get. And, you know, just walking to and from the edit room, just a very gentle, quiet life, you know, that I could have while this work of putting the story together was happening. I really loved that. But at other times, like the piano, I really enjoyed the shoot. So it's changes a lot. I generally enjoy the writing as well. I enjoyed the writing on this film. Yeah.
When after, just go back in time a little bit, after Bright Star, you turned to television, or you came back to television, or you came to TV series world, at least when you...
Some more, yeah.
I interviewed you when you were making Top of the Lake, and you told me that you felt liberated coming back.
Yes.
So what was the biggest difference making a TV series and do cinema?
I think I remember feeling, I remember actually watching Deadwood on my sofa in the living room and just standing up and going, oh my God, they let you do that on TV? Like swear like troopers, like the whole thing was so wild and extreme and exciting. And I actually felt like, film feels conservative, you know, like in that period of time. Maybe it was not conservative in the 70s and the 80s and some of the 90s, but just the cost of, I guess, releasing films and how difficult it is to get audiences to come in and see them. And I felt like I started to understand that the television audience is a lot more radical. And they, you know, enjoy seeing work that's edgy. Whereas I don't know what it is or why it is in cinema. Maybe it's the conservatism of the critics, or even, you know, the decision to go out is such a big one, you know, for a lot of people. They have to get some people have to get a nanny or whatever, and it starts to cost such a lot. So it really is like, is this going to be worth it? They want a guarantee, you know. Whereas you just at home, you just can experiment. And I also found that it was really fun to have long form. It's like a novel as compared to a short story. So you can have all these sort of side stories and explore lots of different parts of characters' lives. And I guess it was just, I was one of the earlier people doing these series, and it just felt fun. And also I did a lot of collaborating, which I really like doing. Again, I collaborated with Jared Lee, and I also collaborated with other directors like Garth Davis on the first one and Ariel Kleiman on the second one, and they were just magic humans. And it made the job really fun. And I loved seeing the work that they did on my script, you know, as well. So, or our script. So the whole thing was really good. I guess the only thing I would say is it's a lot of work. That was 12 hours of material, and we were treating it more or less like film.
Like 6 films.
Yeah, like 6 films. Yeah, exactly. So people say, oh, you didn't do anything for 12 years. And you're like, okay. It's really not true. I was working harder than I ever worked.
But even this 12 years that passed since you did between Bright Star and Cover of the Dog, do you feel that you have met a different world coming back to cinema? And if so, does that coincide with the fact that you have entered a very masculine world for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you're on a film set, that is a very masculine world. anyway. But the story written by Thomas Savage is such a beautiful and interesting exploration of masculinity. And from his point of view, which I guess is like a secretly gay man, as he had to be in that period and that time in a hyper masculine world. And what's so interesting about it is that, for me, is that Thomas Savage actually did live that life. He and his mother went to the ranch as a second marriage with a man a bit like George in the story, and with an uncle, apparently this guy called Ed Brenner, very much like Phil. Obviously the story was fictionalized, but in reality Ed Brenner did die from anthrax poisoning, but it was from a splintery, that had manure on it and things, obviously from a diseased animal. So the work came directly from Thomas Savage's experience, not a documentary, but in many ways, yes, personal, very personal story. I just loved it. So I guess I had to trust that I would be a good person for that story, because I had, such a strong connection to it. And it did make me hesitate, like the world of the ranch and the cattle, which I'm sort of familiar with because my parents had a farm for many years, and I had a horse myself, and I took part in the rounding up the cattle when they got onto the beach or whatever. Like my dad and I would ride them up and down or try and find them, where I was always going all over the place. So I was a little bit, I was familiar with animals, especially cattle and horses, but not like Montana ranches. So I guess in order to make up for that, we did a lot. We went there. We went to the actual ranch where Thomas Savage grew up and did a beautiful research trip that was really enriching, and also made me feel like I'd done due process. Like that I'd done what could be done to bring me as close to his world, and that I think if someone was doing one of my stories, I would want them to do more or less what I did, which was to find out what you can, but also not be like remotely loyal to the work, but to instead like do something different with it, create it afresh for this medium of film. And that's really what I did. I took what I wanted from the story, which was anyway amazing, and added or changed what I thought needed to be changed so that the story would shine as a film.
And the fact that you have made the film for Netflix, did it change anything for you?
I had more money. That was a good thing. I think Netflix at the moment is a really, I experience them as a really generous company, really helpful. And I think the other thing that was important was that the film was a license to Netflix, I think, but we were a separate production company, so that we didn't need to get their. I had approval of the final cut, and I didn't. While I wanted their opinions and their feedback, and we needed to get that, I didn't have to do what they might recommend. However, they're really smart people and they look at a lot of films. So I was really interested to know what they were going to say and to think about it carefully. Like if anything resonated with me, I, would try it out. But there wasn't that much that they were, offering or suggesting in the end. And, they love the film and they have been extremely active in promoting it and making sure the film gets a really decent life as much as is possible theatrically, really, in our COVID kind of fragile world. And I actually feel now that this is the best situation the film could have, you know, especially because of the pandemic, and that cinemas are still a place that not everyone feels comfortable in. I mean, I think Netflix is, you know, and it's happened a few times in my career, you know, Netflix and before that CB2000 are a place where there's companies that have done very well and they are in love with cinema and they want to give people their head and their opportunities, you know, so it's almost like a Medici moment. And that suits me very well.
Yeah. So can you tell us what's in the near future for you?
Then how near? How near is the question. Like this, I guess this year I'll still be, you know, working a little bit on promoting the film, and then I had the idea that I'd like to try and do a pop-up film school in New Zealand. It really bothers me that film education is so expensive for people and it's not equal. And like when I grew up, we had, you know, free health, free education. And even at film school in Australia, we didn't have to pay for tuition. We were paid to go. And I just feel like if I hadn't had that support, I would never have had this career or this opportunity. So I guess I feel very much it would be super fun to give that back. So I'm going to work for free and they're going to be paid. If, you know, let's see if I can raise the money, but I hope so.
Oh, thank you so much, and for this talk, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
With your school. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Hi, this is Jane Campion, and behind me is a big photograph thing of the set that we actually did film at in New Zealand, in the Hawkton Range, and I'm just here to say a really big thank you for choosing me for this prestigious Lifetime Career Award. I'm really excited. Sadly, the horse didn't actually turn up here in LA in time for me to ride it or share it or show it to you. But I really just want to recognise the Stockholm Festival for all the work it's done over the years and supporting and particularly noticing the disparity of attention that female filmmakers haven't had and doing something about it. And I really feel it's a great year to celebrate a massive big change. And you know, I can't help but think that Stockholm was part of that. It really does make a big difference. It's an exciting year for women. They're making some amazing movies and winning the big prizes, and I'm thrilled about that. I'm thrilled now not to be the only woman to have won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. Julia Ducournau made an astonishing film. Titan, if you haven't seen it, really recommend catching it. I just had the best time watching it. So invigorating, so original. And yes, so thank you for the recognition. It really, really means a lot, especially since it's a horse, because I love horses. And as you know, Power of the Dog's got all those horses in it. And I hope you had a great festival, and, you know, thank you very, very much for your support.